Okay, we're gonna get the stream started. Ads are gonna play. Morning, Mojo. How you doing? Seems I'm destined to have little buddies in the room with me. Okay, so that should not be part of that, should it? It's with that. It's with that. It's not doing that. I ate so much Korean barbecue yesterday. The free Korean barbecue. That's better. I finally took some time to set my go live notifications for the people I care about knowing when they go live. Oh, nice. Yeah. Notifications are good. Morning, one line. How you doing? Nice. Okay. Um, you'll see that Seribot has joined, starts the stream now. I've been using that. I mean, I haven't really experienced many problems so far, but the Seribot is you can go to a Twitch stream, and I added them to monitor for the viewers and stuff, and it instantly bans them. Yeah, it can be set up for that, so it is. We'll give it a try, see how it works. Mr. Jones, good morning. That was very quick to get in there. It's probably built on Rust. Yeah, no, I've been using it for a while now, though. Yeah, so we'll see. We keep testing. Got a meeting. Like, thanks for the like, Mr. Jones. Appreciate it. Okay, so today, I made a bit of progress last night. Why won't that rename? Public. Oh, rename. There you go. We'll rename if you do it right. What? Am I just struggling here? Absolutely struggling. What? Why would I name it invite? There you go. Okay. So I had a bit of a play around with reorganizing the code yesterday. So I was watching this video. I was watching the vertical slices video, and it's not directly influenced me, but I've been going through this a lot with um, just the code in general, kind of trying to find the organization of the code that works for me, that makes sense, that I kind of have logical grouping, but obviously I can see the things I'm looking at, the things I'm looking for quickly. And this whole registering new organization, creating new user, registering tenant, creating like this, we tend to flip flop and be non-committal on certain words. I found, and they seem logical, but then someone else might come along and call it create or register or any other word. So I was experimenting with let's put these workflows together as so these are actual workflows. So I created a workflow class. I renamed it to workflow here. I mean, this is my underlying use case class, but even that can get renamed soon. But then I create a workflow underneath the folder describing what I'm doing. So I'm registering a new organization. So registering a new organization is you're onboarding the first user as well as registering that user with auth0, as well as creating a tenant and storing that information, the address and everything like that. So that's why I refer to that as registering an organization versus creating a tenant, right? Because it's not just creating a tenant. A tenant is a record in the database, but it's more than just the record in the database. It's several pieces of data. So I was experimenting with this. Now, the challenge here is in the registering new organization piece, in the workflow here, I actually call create user. And that is in this piece. So I'm still trying to figure out what I like or what I don't like about this. It does make sense, right? So again, I've got these, and the reason I'm thinking about the vertical slice architecture stuff is that I'm watching the video, and they very much are putting folders into the features folder that are basically doing this. Not quite as complicated as mine, but yeah. And then what I decided to do is rather than move the event subscriptions underneath these use cases, because they're side effects, I created a domain event subscriptions folder, and these are the things that happen. So again, if for the most part, there's one, right? This is one. I'm gonna have to put let's make that specifications. Let's make that there. Right. Again, I don't like the fact that now gets into like interspersed with everything else. So maybe that goes up there. So I'm very much relying on the fact that tooling is doing a lot for me here, but I'm experimenting with how I want to read the code and how I want to structure the code. So these events, the reason they're underneath a folder is because these are the subscriptions to these events happening, and now these are logically grouped. I don't have to know the use case to know the event that I'm listening for, right? So if I want to know about user created, I go here. If I want to know about tenant was registered, I go here. Again, I'm using tenant was registered. Technically, it's tenant was created. I'm just calling it registered. So again, my naming. So I'm just trying to make sure that the code continues to evolve and matches what I expect it to do. And again, refactorings like this are not difficult to do. So yeah. So just now I'll do refactor this, adjust namespaces, correct all the namespaces so everything lines up still. So yeah, invitation was created. So when you create a new user, registering new user, there's the act of getting the tenant, creating the actual user, associating the user with tenant, and then inviting the user. Inviting the user triggers the invitation, right? So, or it triggers the event. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to disconnect creating the invitation record. So this is just going to create an invitation record. It's not going to talk about email. It's not going to talk about anything like that. It's just going to create the record. The actual invitation is a side effect that happens when this is actually added to the database. So once we've confirmed the invitation is added to the database, we've tracked, hey, who added it, who invited, got the code, etc., as we did the other day, yesterday. Seems like so long ago. My buddies. Then once this is saved to the database, it'll trigger the event. So invitation was created. And what I'm thinking of doing here, and I'd love if anybody has any solid opinions on this, like from an organizational standpoint, from a just a general opinion. I'm going to send a message on the service bus, right? So this is a command, not this isn't a Kafka event thing, right? So going back to my lovely diagram, right? This is hard to describe now because now I've introduced, there's not just integration events, right? There's the commands. And tenant management is going to send a command to send an invitation, right? How we do that, where we do that, is not the responsibility of tenant management, in my opinion, right? So, I don't want to ruin my nice diagram because it'll. Why? Why do you do it in light mode? Why do you not let me set that? Gotta let me change that. Uh, no opinions here. Not at all. No opinions at all. I bet Control G is still in there as grouping, isn't it, as well? Yeah. Fortunately, you can't override. As far as I can tell, you can't override Obsidian. When do I ever have opinions? I know it's not very often. Pretty chill, unopinionated guy. Sorry, I'm just trying to. I'm focused on the wrong thing here. Yeah. I honestly wouldn't know though. Not enough familiarity with the technology you're using. Okay, fair enough. Communications. Flow. Skydraw. I only label Met Skydraw just I know I don't have to label anything. Can anyone explain Razor View engines but relate to modern web tech? Anyone explain Not sure I follow. Uh, okay, so let's do what I did the other day, right? And then yesterday I started organizing my code, and I'm not satisfied with it yet. My measure is how much time I spend looking for something, and how if I have to go, oh, not there, no, okay, and the the first trigger point for me here is I have a create user command under registering new user, right? So this workflow invokes create user and invite user, right? As commands. So this makes sense. I like the workflow thing, but the problem is this workflow. The only workflow that's specific to it is associate user with tenant, right? This is a domain service because there's way more complexity in here. So that automatically moves to domain to me, right? I see the application as kind of a coordinated thing. It can trigger actions, but it doesn't. It's just doing simple invokes. If there's more logic to it, if there's more behavior stuff, then that goes into a domain service. So that's kind of my delineation right this second. As long as I stick to that, I'm good, right? But the workflow will coordinate things. The domain service will do certain more advanced stuff than just create, and if it doesn't exist, don't do it, etc. But then this workflow also calls this command. Now I know a cheat which will make it look like this is calling create user in the commands folder. So I could make it look like that, but I don't see any benefit in doing it, right? I could do a link. I think that's still possible in Rider. It definitely is in Visual Studio, linked files. So I could do a link, so I could make it look like create user exists in here as well. But I don't think that's very useful. But neither do I think moving this out to shared is useful, because then it's like, well, what's it shared with, right? I could do registration as a thing, and then have new organization and new user, and then have commands. That might be one way I could do it. And then all the commands live under the commands, and the new organization and new user are these specific things to them. So the workflows would live underneath here. That might be one way. But I'm not gonna panic about it right now. I'm gonna wait until I see another case up here, and then see how it feels. Sally, hello, how are you doing? Yeah. Well, look on downstream. Yeah. Okay. So I was about to explain something. And raise rendering engine, take markup, the C sharp in it, and generate HTML after applying all the C sharp stuff. That's about as good as an explanation I could get for Razor View engines. Not sure if there was what the question was in there. Okay, so I have what I refer to as components, right? So we have many components. Each component consists of an API, an application layer, and potentially consumers to consume other events happening in the system. The component can publish um, it can publish integration events, and that's Kafka. I'm separating my usage of Kafka here from, and I'm referring to them as integration events, purely to make sure that I keep on the track of, I only want to use Kafka in this scenario for publishing things that have, that like publishing the state of the system, essentially. I'm publishing, this is what this looks like now, right? And this is the information that this component is willing to share with the outside world. I don't want to use Kafka to do two things, right? So that it's clear how I'm using it. What that does mean is that I'm potentially overcomplicating the rest of the system, because I'm going to, in fact, well lit enough by the screens. So yeah, I want to use Kafka as an integration events provider. It's the state of the system. I'm overcomplicating it because I'm now going, I need another thing, right? So in this instance, this isn't an integration event. This isn't something that I can kind of fudge into that, right? So this domain event subscription for event invitation was created. I need to go and tell something to do something. It's not a request. It's not a, hey, just in case you care. This is a, you need to do this, right? It's an essential part of the system. So I've already done it. I did it months ago, right? But I introduced MassTransit, and I'm using MassTransit as a service bus. And with MassTransit, I can do eventing. I can do publishing of, by the way, this happened, and I can consume it. But I can also send commands, and commands are point to point. They are intended to be, hey, here's a consumer. I was reading that View Engine was a way of setting up an MVC application, and it sounded like it would work like a Razor component. You'd have to give the link to, for me, you'd have to give the link and I'd have to see it. Not quite sure I follow. So, yeah, so okay, well, I'm sending a command. Why don't I use Kafka? I could just use Kafka support. I gotcha. Um, I'm sending a command. Why not use Kafka? Why not just piggyback on that, create a topic that is like commands or something? And I could do it, but I think that's making more of a mess. And again, going forward, the if there's nice, clean use cases for using the technology, then it's more obvious how to use that. So with Kafka, if I say, okay, integration events, things that need to publish, but we don't care who picks them up, that's Kafka, right? If there's something that the system, we know the system actually has to react to, but we don't know which components of the system react to, that's MassTransit publish, right? That's an event in MassTransit. If we know that something should definitely receive this, but we don't care about what should receive this right now, or rather, we have an explicit intent, but we don't care about um, who handles it or how that's structured. That's a command, right? So that's a send. So if I can kind of bucket them that way, then it's a little simpler. So from this perspective now, there's going to be two other options potentially, right? There's commands. I'm gonna say service bus. MassTransit is my technology of choice here, but um, yeah, move that over there. Let's move that over there. Oh no, you did not attach. And now we need events, right? Uh, right. I use to verify whether the source of the view engine has been thing.net used for a long time. Both use it, but Razor files take it further by using the Razor component renderer, which allows for the component to be rendered in real time and only apply changes to the parts the HTML changed. So I believe it was Bart de Schmet that came up with the Razor stuff. I know he was one of the earliest people I remember talking about Razor syntax. Um, he did a .NET Rocks interview. I think he might have done a DNR TV video even on Razor back in the day. Back in the day. I hate saying that. That sounds weird. But you know what I mean. Um, yeah, I think it's Bart de Schmet. He's a super smart guy. Works at Microsoft now. Bart de Schmet. say but I can't find it. Yeah, that's the first person I remember talking about that. So it might be talking about the view engine stuff might be a good way to understand going back a little bit further. The way I understood it is that Razor View Engine is responsible for taking Razor syntax and combining it to static HTML, and the Razor component rendering engine can do that over and over and apply it to HTML. Yes, that makes sense. Either way, it's abstracted. Two dogs chewing bones and stuff behind me, and all I can hear is chomp, 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 chomp. Okay. So yeah, this is what I'm doing, right? And what this means now is that instead of making my application responsible for doing the email, so this if this is a queue, right? Let's say I add 20 users or 20 tenants add users en masse at a time, right? And my email is sent and managed within here, then this part of my system is going to become a bit slower, right? Because now this tenant management API is actually going to be sending emails. So if the email server is unavailable, I have to handle that in my tenant management piece, and then I don't have the resiliency there. So I don't want to send an email from within this application, right? I want to offload that to someone else. I started adding tests around some things yesterday as well. Let's do the win here. Let's uncheck that. Let's check that. That. Introduce send method for MassTransit publisher. I've abstracted message bus here, but I've still called it message bus just to make sure I'm clear about what it is. We'll worry about that abstraction getting stronger as I get more usage in there later. Publisher commands. The component is possible in old .NET. .NET. Let's do this. So this is the command. I must have already committed the actual. No, I haven't. Okay, there we go. So that's the command. That's the invitation was created. That's the invitation. We've added that library. Okay, so yeah, new user create when invitation created. Invitation is created. Trigger a domain event. Wish to worship the command. Send invitation email. I don't think I send. Yeah, send user registration invitation. I'm not actually specifying that it's email. It is email, but it doesn't have to be email potentially. Compose a command to send invitation. The rest is restructured code to improve readability around commands, use cases. I believe it's a tag helper component that can be used as well as I think they're called HTML helper. I haven't got any of that sort of technology in a long time. Weird. It's weird because I've spent so much time in Angular in a professional environment, and then I haven't really built any pages for myself of any other than Angular, obviously, recently. I've really kind of not spent a lot of time focused on the other web stuff. So and you see it in my Blazor stuff, right? When I'm struggling through it, because I don't use it enough to understand some of those concepts, and then those concepts put me off. So, okay. So technically, if I was being picky, what I've done now is actually completed. Essentially, I've completed the register new user API. I haven't because I've not set up the other side of it, and realistically, there's no value if I don't get the email. This is complete when I can actually say, send the email. Ooh, that's not good. Don't drop phone. Okay. That'll be the last resource for now. I'm trying to get things published. Oh yeah, we saw the whole Azure Central thing. Does Angular use components? Yeah, yeah. So Angular, in the Angular side of things, yeah, is very much focused on. So like I have my planning item detail is just the detail component. The table, here's the table, right? And when I click on one, I have a panel. So the actual home page for planning items is here. And in here I say, okay, there's my planning item. That's the add form. That's the actual table. That's the detail. Then I load it in. See, Angular supports it. The thing I like about Angular is this, right? Is kind of the code behind. And until recently, when I've been playing with Blazor, right, and other things, they put everything in the HTML or the CSS HTML or the whatever, the dot razor or whatever you want to call it. And that was always my issue with those sorts of things. And I understand that code behind is a thing now, and they're making it more of a thing. Rightly so. I kind of like the separation of, and one line brought this up yesterday, not yesterday, on Wednesday. Like, I get that there's got to be some logic in your view, in your view code if you're going to do conditional display stuff. It's just how much and what do you put in there. So if this becomes more complicated, then is it pristine and does it, or is it not pristine and does it have errors? Or yeah, and it has errors, right? Pristine means the field's never been touched. So it's not going to display errors by default. But this sort of stuff's okay. But if there's something more calculating, I wouldn't do that inside of here. Sorry. And I think my dog's been trying to chew an XLR cable. Um, Blazor supports more. Angular supports it, but it's a little easier in the Blazor stuff, or the Blazor stuff to. I like Koban in the IDE, but I don't like it in Go. Yeah, but again, my structuring of my Angular project isn't perfect. I've still, again, this is something I would like to sit down with someone who's really comfortable with Angular and talk about strategies and designs for, component stuff. Yeah. This is my weakness, but yeah, Angular supports components. Has done for a long time. Okay. I'm just gonna go BRB 1 second. I need to go get a cup of coffee. I'll be right back. Okay. Yeah, that Azure thing messed up a lot of people. So, and then the whole CloudStrike thing messed up a whole lot more. CloudStrike, not CloudStrike. I don't know why I got cloud in my head there. Oh yeah, Azure. Okay. I'm debating on the design here. Do I call this communication? So I'm not going to create an endpoint. I'm not going to create a library that is just. It's like a lot of us don't have disaster recovery. Not uncommon. So at a previous employer, um, our deployment strategy was to copy and paste the website into a folder and then repoint IIS at that folder so that if we had to roll back, we just pointed it at the previous folder. Our database was replicated, but we had a dependent system that wasn't set up for DR. And it was expected of us that every quarter we do a DR failover. not even simulation, just do it off hours, make sure it works, make sure we know all the pieces. And we never did it because it was just way more hassle to bring everything back once we'd taken it down. We just had confidence in the fact that it would, that we knew the pieces that were the weak, and we knew who to call immediately if something happened. My apps on AWS, but I just couldn't CI/CD my change from yesterday. My Mindo deploy from VS is not working. Uh, yeah, I wouldn't want to be the engineering group at CrowdStrike though that rolled out the uh, the bad update. That's gonna be a bad day today. Oh dear. Okay. So this is where I get into new ground. Let me go to my favorite place, the pictures. Oh, hello again. How are you? My visitor's back. Um, hello, buddy. Hello. There you go. Sorry. Yeah, I feel very guilty about ignoring a dog when they come in. They're very friendly. It's I struggle just ignoring him. Produce changes. That's done. Communications flow. So that's the general thing that's going to happen. But what I'm considering now is, do I create a communications component, right? What does it mean to have a communications component, right? Do I put preferences in there? Do I channel everything through communications that is um, communicating with a user, either through email, SMS, or push? Well, no, push. That would have to be in the app layer, right? Mm, not necessarily the way I've got it built. Oh, sorry, I just had a light bulb moment. Because of the way I have this built through the gateway, just open, okay. Why doesn't that open? Ah, there we go. Because of the way I've got this built, if, and this is where this diagram starts to really break down because it's not represented, it's not a plop, drop sort of behavior here. That sounds disgusting, but I'm not going to drop in a command and then drop everything down to the view side of things, right? A communications piece might have a query side to it and a command side to it. But they'd be different components within, different pieces within the same component. Um, if I consider communications as a component of the system, I could have, I'm going to do a little bit of scribbling here. I could have preferences. So it would have an API. Preferences. I mean, that's realistically that, but it would then need a store because it's going to need users. It's going to need who is a user, right? Again, in this instance, what I'm doing is I'm sending. Of course, Copilot needs to update. It's a day that ends with Y. Where am I going? Attachments, changes, planning, tenant management. Go to tenant management and go to invitation was created. I'm sending the name and email here, but there's no reason that the communications component hasn't consumed information from Kafka when users were created, etc. Now, in the name of making sure this email can go pretty quickly, I probably want to send this all the time. Lol. Yeah, I probably want to send this all the time. But there's no reason why I couldn't store the users in here. But also, I could manage channels, right? So email, SMS, and push. And I can manage push because I could put an API layer in here. I could put in a signal art component in here and have the client connect to. There's nothing, unless I'm wrong, there's nothing saying that you can't connect to multiple signal art endpoints. Or even, I mean, I connect to GraphQL right now. Thanks for a daily reminder to update Rider. It's, and to be fair, it's not just, obviously Rider has to do the update. And it's great that GitHub Copilot has been updated so frequently. It makes me wonder what they're actually updating. That it needs to be the plugin needs to be updated, right? Is the data source or something integrated into the plugin and therefore needs to be updated? Their own plugin does the same thing. If I turn it back on, obviously I'm not paying for it, but if I turn on their JetBrains AI version, that also does updates frequently. Yeah, so their freemium version works the same way. So that needs constant updates. So what my aha moment there was is I don't need to consider communications as having to do anything else and send things beyond it. It can actually be a first class citizen of the application. It's not just a supporting piece. What I'm going to have to learn at some point is a better diagramming method because now my diagram is absolutely insane and it's going to get worse. Yeah, I agree. What's in the plugin that requires my site to be updated? Yeah, you're not telling me that the software needs to change every single day or practically every single day, right? I stream minimum 5 days a week, most weeks, and we see that pop up appear most days. Hmm. I'm getting to the point with this application that I'm thinking that I probably can't build everything myself. Or I have to scale back my designs a little bit, which I don't like the idea of either. I like the ambitious design, it's just getting to the point where I'm like, oh dear, there's a lot of stuff to do. Um, are you using an interface for all the communications? When I was learning the factory pattern, most of the examples were exactly what you're doing in our communication in your communications diagram. So what I'm doing, I mean, I'm not even at the point of factories yet. What I'm doing is I don't want and let me know if this is just too deep and not worth going into, but um I'm building the system in such a way that the individual areas of the application are standalone components, right? So tenant management is just about tenant management, right? It's creating users, it's registering projects. So projects are a tenant concern right this second because they are global to the system, right? The idea is that a tenant a project is a project across the entire system. So ticketing, planning, etc. will all have access to projects. So it belongs in tenant right now. But users, addresses, everything to do with the tenant belongs in tenant management. What that means is when I need to do something outside, like I need to do communication, then tenant management is not where I put email. I don't put email components in these things just to support, if a planning item needs to be emailed to someone, email does not get put in here, right? So I'm creating, what I want to do is abstract communications as as a component of its own, right? So that's why that. So it's another component, right? I'm kind of blurring the lines here with this. This shouldn't be here. This is more. That's the general thing that happens, and then so that should actually be not communications flow. That should be general flow, and then you drawing blind everyone. Apologies. Paste that in there. This is communications flow. Um, so in this instance, right, tenant management. Can remove that right now, which is a component. What I probably need to do is come up with some iconography, or figure out a style of iconography to do this. Actually, let's do. I can't do this the other day, right? Where did I do it? I'm getting better at pictures and stuff. Here we go. So I kind of have these. I kind of want to make these a library of things that I can use. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Um, if I did, what if I did this? I'm going to make a box. A component diagram. That's going to be a component group. Okay, so if I go over here now, no, General flow, communications, open a new tab. So I'm going to make that a thing now. So if I mean a component, I mean that. That works for me. Communications. So what I'll do in here, so that can all go away actually because it isn't actually relevant. What I'll do in this communications component is this will consume this event, and it will I'll make sure that it has access to email, to SMS, to whatever. Now in this first version, this knows it's going to be an email. It knows it's going to be an email, so it just needs to have an email component in the system. But ultimately, I'd have preferences, and the preferences would dictate. So some sort of, not necessarily factory, but a resolver to be able to say, okay, what do I need to be telling this person about? Another thing I read, but I don't think I need yet, is using a service locator. Messaging system interface for email, SMS. I wouldn't try chasing. Sorry, I wouldn't try chasing things that people like throw out there. Service locator. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. This is a specific style. Dependency injection, but I know it's not dependency injection. Similar problem, different, yeah. I suppose it does look like the same thing. I mean, using dependency injection for resolving certain things, but the challenge, I think, the thing you're thinking specifically of in this instance would be if I need email, how do I get email? What you're saying sounds like how I read the service. Okay, yeah. I've got that stupid sunbeam straight in my eyes again. Hello, buddy. Hello. Okay. He's walking over my legs. Like I want to walk here, yes. Um, so tenant management is going to send a what is it? What did I call it? Um, Send user registration invitation. In this case, right? Ooh, that's horrible. Communications is going to receive that and have a consumer for this piece specifically, and I'm going to configure email as an interface. I've found in the past that abstracting email is a pretty difficult thing to do, but this isn't going to be quite as simple as just turn around and send an email with some plain text. This is going to be a little bit more involved, but because I do need to get to templates and stuff. If I'm going to make it look professional, I might as well do it properly, right? Yeah, so I think I'm actually set on communications as a component because actually my first worry was that communications would just be email, and then it doesn't. But I actually can make communications a major component of the system if I build it in the correct way. So communications, right? I'm going to start at the simple part here. He says console app. there's a reason for that source. I also need to start considering this mess. No, we're not going to open Explorer. Oh, I may have been playing with Rust last night as well. So in my source folder now looks like this, which is pretty much the most intimidating source folder I've seen in a long time. Probably should get rid of throwaway. That might be good to exclude at some point. But basically, I probably need to make these. I mean, the naming of them helps, but these probably need to get broken down into folder structure. Source, and this is going to be communications. Communications infrastructure. So there's one problem with using both service bus and MassTransit, service bus and Kafka. They both create messages. Service bus refers to it as publish and send. So a command is sent, an event is published. Kafka refers to it through producer, right? Which I have called publish, right? So I publish an event to Kafka. Both of them have consumers. So I'm not going to shy away from that, but it does mean that I could actually have consumers for service bus events and actually I'm about to do it, right? So how do I handle that? I'm not going to worry about it right this second. I'm going to worry about it when I come to scale out later because this is going to be tough. Dang, I lied a little. It was the combo of factories and strategies that used email, SMS, push as their samples. I actually used that combo. Yeah. So I don't. I always struggle when it comes to how to. Like some people think academically and think in patterns, and they understand what, and they're solving the problem through the pattern. I don't look for patterns. I look for the solution, and I find the cleanest solution I can. And if a pattern applies, a pattern applies. So how do you use factories and strategies for email, SMS, and push? I assume you have a communications interface and you build uh, the communication technique based upon the strategy. The factory produces the communications thing, so it's all abstracted. Which ultimately I will probably need to do something like that because again, I'm going to need to put some um, configuration in here. Yeah. If you have a link or anything to a document that guided you down that path, I'd like to look. But yeah, I don't go chasing the pattern. The pattern either appears, or if I see something in the code, then I might look for it and see if something fits. But I have a visualization problem in there. I can't look at a pattern and say, oh yeah, I can solve this problem with this pattern. Okay, so the challenge here, this consumers, I'm actually going to put Kafka and MassTransit consumers in the same thing. They're both consumers, right? The way you write this, actually, I probably should test. I probably should get. Let me bring up MassTransit. Let me bring up that consumers. So I'm going to be implementing one of the, no, that's, can you delete your own messages? You can't. That's just my search of MassTransit. That's not the actual link, is it? That's the link. I'll find a YouTube video that uses notifications specifically. However, I use this example that used bank accounts. Let's have a look. The problem, as before, pretend they're on a team of Java developers working for a bank. No one's perfect. This time around, we're calculating monthly interest on different types of accounts. Initially, we're only dealing with two account types, current and interest paying. Interest calculator. Two different money markets. Interest calculation strategy. Current account. Yeah. Strategies are useful. What? Interest calculation strategy factory. Add the no interest calculation to our factory. Interest calculator. There's so much visual space used for naming the strategy there, though. People follow that pattern. Hey, Jan, how you doing? Good job as a developer. Congratulations. Nice. Well done. Huh. Save this for whenever. John Williams. Okay. The best software design pattern combo. Nice. Yeah, I'll give that a watch later, Mojo. Yeah, but you're not wrong. In ultimately, what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to create something that's going to know how to communicate. But it's not something I need to solve immediately. I know that's not what you're suggesting, but I'm just trying to be. What I need to solve right now is, can I send an email? That's actually, that would be a lovely step to get to. I've written a lot of code. I've changed things around. I've done a lot of things. So how do we get to that point? So we're going to go to consumers, and we need to. I had deleted all the code I'd written before, which is awesome. We need to inject. Let's add a reference to. So if anyone is new to the stream, if anyone's interested in what I'm doing, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to pass opinions. It's okay to ask me to dig into technology or describe things. I am happy to talk about this stuff. I got to figure out if I want to break that out. So feel free if you're interested in learning more. There's a lot to look at, and I bounce around a lot. So what am I? I'm kind of considering what I'm doing here as far as need hosting. So what are you building, Jan? You doing website stuff? You doing anything cool? Okay, so var app equals host dot, and this is where this gets a bit messy because you've got to be careful because MassTransit has a host, but that's not the same host. Host dot create default builder, I think it is that I want here. Configure services, context, services. Yeah, that's fine. Dot build, await, not run async. So that at least gets me started as far as an app goes. Use MassTransit. So this is an extension method I've built, and what this will do is actually that's theirs. That's interesting. Host builder, configure services, add MassTransit. That's pretty impressive. That's theirs. Configure. Oh, that's not a lot of stuff either. But I think I have my own version of that method. That's the concern right this second. Configuration, extensions, add message bus. Okay, yeah, I do have add message bus. So in here, I do add MassTransit and I do the configure. Usages. Where do I use this? Servicebus, planning items, configuration. Okay, so I can add message bus and then that's that part. So they kind of have that part down. That's the same thing, isn't it? I've got a usage of it there. I'm wondering if I've just duplicated effort here. So here, add message bus. If I go in there, it does that part for me. Oh, it sets up my MassTransit configuration, registers the publisher, and then calls their add MassTransit, I believe. Yes, with that configuration. Okay, so it allows me to hand it down. Hi 36. How you doing? Okay, so that's how I've configured that. I'm just making sure I don't confuse this. So I don't need to do in my program here. I don't need to use that because I'll add that later. I need to create a configuration that is. So again, I set up my MassTransit configuration in here and I add MassTransit calling that configure method. And then in this one, I moved it to configuration. So we'll do this again. Right, so we'll create a. I've got a 40-pound dog that believes that under my feet is her realm. And I do not have space. So we'll do that and then we'll paste this in. Port message. Yeah, use RabbitMQ. So we'll do that. We'll import the references and then we'll inject those pieces. So what this is going to do is use RabbitMQ. We'll worry about we do need to add the consumer. We'll do that in a minute. But what this should allow us to do now is say use, did I call it use MassTransit? I did. Use service bus, that's one. That's right. That's why I did it that way. Right. So the idea there would be that I'm abstracting MassTransit out of this piece. I'm just saying service bus, and this is actually telling me what service bus looks like. But why does that not have builder.services? It's a host builder. App. I'll use that elsewhere. Add message bus. So that's my add message bus method. That's the thing. So I need the service collection, but the service collection isn't available in the host builder because it's still the builder. That'd be why. How do I do this? I have figured this problem out. So here, service bus is on the host application builder. He says, as he doesn't use service bus. Yep, okay, now I'm using service bus. I will need a MassTransit component here as well, but we'll figure that out in a second. So is this just because I'm not, if I do I host application builder, that works fine, but then this isn't, because that's a different configuration. Because in this one, this, how do you do settings? Doesn't make sense. I've done this somewhere else. View probably. Here you go. Create default builder. Okay, so I just used it against the services, so that's why. So in this instance, this becomes iService collection. And this is iService collection. This goes away. We don't need T builder there. Add service bus. And this is, it's called builder right this second. It's going to be called services. And in here, this is create default builder, configure services, context, services, and then services dot add service bus. There we go. We'll do it that way. It's depending on which type of application I'm building. It's depending on but I'm just trying to wrap these methods up, and I'm trying this again. I'm not just dumping the code in, and I'm not just thinking, okay, well, let's get it done and move on. I do want to kind of consider how I organize the code. If I come back to recode later, don't just assume, oh, I did this 6 months ago. It's tough. I'll just leave it be. Refactor that, move it around. If I can't understand it, that is a good measure of it needs a little bit of cleanup and refactoring because the code is not clear. So yeah, that's what I'm doing there. What I need here is MassTransit configuration. So we're going to need to add a configuration file. And we're going to add that. Right. It's pretty simple setup right this second. And also in our planning application, not applying our tenant management application. So tenant management, even though the application code is kind of generic, it's still using service bus. I do need MassTransit in here. Services and stuff are at the bottom. That should go up above everything else. So Auth0, console, MassTransit, Kafka. These are things. I also need service discovery in here. This is a simpler one, or it should be. Use console. Did I do it on services or did I do it on, again, shared, console, host builder extensions, host application builder, same problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a version of this that builds off of service configuration extensions. I'm going to create a version of this that serves off of it's kind of the same thing. Is that add console? What is this one? Well, that's actually adding console. And then that's my extension method. So I think I need to rename this. Configure service discovery. I'm trying to remove. So I'm still gonna support this version because this is still my method that I'm invoking on the service collection. I'm just going to support a service collection first version of it so that I can do it both ways. Use console service discovery, service collection, and then this just becomes that. That's that. Add console there. Return services there. And then the only challenge is this. How do I get that at resolution time? That is the question. Services.get. No, services. So the problem is you don't have resolution. Add console. Does this have? No, it just has configure. How do I do this then? So if you do the dependency injection, the service discovery, the service collection version, passing configuration, I think it's going to have to be here, right? Get section. There you go. So then that way over here, I can do services dot add console service discovery. Did I just forget? Use console services. Um, Service collections. I've got to be very careful here because service collections generally refer to um, add, and then once it's resolved and it's the app, then it's use, right? Because it's not, yeah. These admins must be a little upset they're going to have a very busy Friday. Yeah, in multiple ways. Oh, I was worried about that. A former colleague is suffering. Everything is down in production and DR. In the parent company. The deployment strategy didn't affect them. Nice. Okay, so let's get some. So I gotta figure out. So I have consumers, and this first consumer is going to consume the command. So I'm still going to build this in the same way, right? A consumer is going to be an entry point. It's not going to be the thing that does the thing, right? Um, is I'm going to quote quote Mojo. I think someone's going to have a bad Friday. I haven't, of course, logged into my work stuff yet, so I don't know if my company's affected anyway. My senior dev wants us to have a deploy to a different provider plan. Well, there's two problems going on right now. Don't forget, there's the outage at Azure was just one of them. The other one, the more major one, was CrowdStrike reboot, putting machines in reboot loops. CrowdStrike is a management tool and it deploys to people's machines and servers, etc., to keep track of for mitigation of things like ransomware stuff. And an update to that, which again self deploys, right? Put machines in reboot loops. That's the big one that people with right now. Um, I think I got caught up. I had the feeling where it felt like I was moving through mud while I couldn't commit to DevOps, connect to the NuGet feed, manage the pipeline, nor update the production app with my amazing new filter feature. We got all that done this morning, and it feels like such a breath of fresh air. Yeah, I love that feeling of getting something. Like I really want to get this. Like to me, I'm chasing the again. I've come up against one of those moments where I'm chasing an end result with little to show for it, and then all of a sudden it comes together, and it's quite that's yeah. What's strange and probably unrelated was the issue my fiance's laptop was having on Wednesday was a reboot loop. Yeah. Well, I doubt you installed CrowdStrike on your fiance's laptop. Oh, okay, maybe. It was a work computer and apparently it affected a handful of people at work. Well, yeah. But apparently lots of systems down today. Um, yeah, I want to kind of get through this hoop, this hump and get past it, because it'd be so satisfying to see this work. But so big picture, what I'm trying to do here is build this component out of work more. I'll actually demonstrate more and more on that eventually. Add user workflow can disappear for now. But what I'm trying to do is get to this point, right? So I have changes, and I have validated that it calculates differences and publishes a stream of events. But until I can add new users into the system, I can't really utilize that, because the notifications have little value when I'm the only user, because I shouldn't be getting notifications about things I change, right? So it's going to be a little while before I get to where I want to be. That's a challenge. But if I can get new users added, so new users mean publishing the emails, that workflow needs to come in. That's obviously a step forward. The application benefits. Allow myself to add new users. When I can add a new user, now I can say, okay, now notifications. I need to subscribe, so I can manage those subscriptions. And it just kind of should snowball into this. All of a sudden, things are just working. But yeah, it's just a lot of little pieces. And as for deploying to a different provider plan, the problem is with the different. If you set up a different provider, you can't just, unless you use code as infrastructure stuff extensively. That's not just an easy ask, is it? Right? Because everything you do in your production, you have to maintain for what it would be in the other provider. So you have to test it. So it's very expensive to have, if you want Azure and AWS, so you have a fallback. And if they're in the same regions as well, more than likely it's going to be internet outages and stuff affecting you. So other providers don't always help. It's only this major issue that the other provider gives any sort of problem solving. But in this case, if your stuff's in Azure in US Central in Azure, and that goes down, hello, little missy. If that goes down, then um, how do you get the data out anyway to AWS? So the only way you do that is if you replicate your data to AWS, which means you constantly have the system up and available in AWS and running. Yes, it might be in a scaled down version. You might have only certain components turned up, but you always have to maintain two infrastructures, and it becomes more of a management nightmare for you. I told my senior dev that if all of Azure goes down, then I think the world will have bigger problems than submitting their homework. Yeah. Um, but again, you got to consider it's not just, oh, let's have a failover strategy to a different operator, a different provider, but it's how do we do that? How do we juggle those resources? And with few developers, that's a harder ask, because you've got to maintain it all the time. Every change, every infrastructure modification, every schema change, you've got to make sure it's valid, and that it's going to be available into the system. And again, if Azure goes down, unless you're live replicating your data over to AWS, which means you're always running a data piece in AWS anyway and running those costs up, for the few times they actually are affected in that way, it's a lot of cost and a lot of effort and a lot of energy, and easy to lose track of. Then you're in that point of, okay, well, now on a cycle, we have to test it, right? So again, every 3 months or whatever, you're going to have to test, okay, let's fail over to AWS. Does it work properly? Like, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's definitely possible, but the resources you have mean that is a horrible challenge. And not just from the cost perspective, but from the difficulty perspective, from the opportunity to lose track perspective. we're not perfect. All the documentation in the world isn't going to mean you miss nothing. And does it really solve a problem? Now your costs are going up almost double, plus nightmare keeping it running and checking it is running as correct. Yeah, you've you're monitoring now two systems, one of which you hope to never use, but you're paying for that system as if it is, even if it's not all active, even if most of it's set in an idle state and not running up cost, your data still has to be, otherwise. Yeah, and now you have more technological challenges in place as well, because you've got to make sure your system knows how to do that replication. So your senior dev can dream that up, but yeah. And good day, solo dev, by the way. Hope you're well. I've heard of companies having another data center in another region. And every 6 months, they tested the R plan by bringing the other data center online and flipping over to it the next 6 months. So, yeah, it's a good question for when do you reach a scale that requires multi-cloud? Yeah, I can say from Mojo's conversations so far, they're not at the scale where that makes sense. And hello, Mr. Weathers, how are you doing? I was just talking about you the other day. Uh, my week's been good overall. I was requested for jury duty last week, the other week, and this week was my week, and it went like, we don't need you today, we don't need you today, we don't need you today. Good, we're good, thank you. So I was like, yay, because I was willing to do jury duty. I just it would not have been convenient. Ooh, hopefully good things. All zeros kept me busy. All zeros keeping me busy right this second. Actually, it's what I'm focused on, my user registration process right this second. Um, so I've been going back and forth on how I'm going to add new users to my system. I'm using the Auth0 database, and obviously the workflow's there. And basically, what I'm doing right now is I'm actually producing an invitation email and to onboard a user. So I create the user and associate it with a tenant in my system, and then I produce an event that will send an email. Um, I learned that I don't like SendGrid yesterday. Um, it'll produce an email, and that will invite the user to log in. When they actually click the link, it'll redirect to my system, ask them to configure their account, and that will then register their account with Auth0. That way, the password is theirs. I never have to worry about resetting and stuff. Something coming to you that might be useful here. Oh, nice. um, yeah. So I am down that path because I was going through the other day. Oh, what is it? Data flow general add user. Yeah, so I kind of was going back and forth on how to do this, and I kind of basically ended up with, I'll go through when I go to add a user, I'll create the user in my database, I'll assign it to a tenant, create the invitation myself and send it. Because initially I was thinking Auth0 would trigger that, and Auth0 does not do that. Auth0 does not send the email for that piece. And then the user will click the link that I send them in their invite, and then they will confirm it, and then that will register with Auth0. Yeah, no worries. I think his personal thing is very much by the book and gets very strong understanding of the technical material. But in Mr. Footnote says you don't need to worry about this if you have 20K. Personality thing, gotcha. Um, yeah. So the system I'm building is quite a large one at this point. I'm leaning into a lot of distributed stuff. I'm using Kafka, I'm using MassTransit, and what I'm building right this second now, I'm trying to build is the actual consumer for the event, and I'm going to send an email to the user and invite them. You planning on starting your stream up at any point, Hurricane? I haven't seen you. I assume you haven't streamed. I haven't managed to catch you if you have, but yeah, very missed. Or is that being kept busy? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's also when you step away from streaming for a little bit, it actually becomes more intimidating to get back to it because it's like pressing that button and restarting all that stuff again. And because it, the only way to do streaming is to be consistent and just keep doing it. I feel, and have some stuff I want to build for Aspire and Auth0. Nice. Well, just in case. Hey, Phil Snammel. Um, yeah, Mojo's there. Mojo's already followed. Um, I read someone at CrowdStrike has had a bad day. Not just CrowdStrike, right? Pretty much everyone that uses CrowdStrike. My former colleague has just told me that they turned on their machine to check what was happening, and CrowdStrike updated and then bricked their machine. So, a lot of people are having a very bad Friday today. I hope that gets resolved quickly. Um, yeah. So what I'm doing here is I'm building out. Right, I'm getting better at diagramming. Um, I'm building out this communications component. So communications will be a component into itself. All things that are communications related will go through this component. So what I'm thinking about is the future. I can actually configure preferences in here, and then the rest of the system can notify the user, and the communication system decides how to notify the user, right? They told us to install it on all the servers too. Yes. Yes. I don't think my current employer uses CrowdStrike. I'm hoping in a little while when I turn on that turn on that machine, that is it does not. Yeah. Um yeah, I'm still waiting for Mojo to stream and demonstrate Aspire to me that, and I'll go, oh yeah, this is what I could be doing. I have to wait. Abdul Malka Mal Malkbakia, thank you very much for the follow. Apologies if I just completely wrecked that name. Welcome in. If you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to share. If you would like me to dig into anything in particular, I'm happy to talk about the software. So yeah. So Mojo has been starting to get into streaming. Loves playing with Aspire and technologies like that. And like most of us, has a project collecting problem. No place I see Aspire actively discusses the Aspire channel on the .NET Evolution Discord. I think it's a third-party identity provider story. We can tell on a few fronts there. Nice. So yeah, Mojo's been doing some cool stuff on stream, tinkering with things. But I've yet to see something that tells me that Aspire is going to solve my problems for this. Like, obviously, this is now getting on for quite a large project, right? It's 59 projects, of which each one of these has deployed pieces. So we've got, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight projects to deploy here, plus the API gateway, plus so there's a lot of different pieces to deploy here. I've got Docker containers for Kafka, for RabbitMQ, for Redis, and all those pieces as well. So I've yet to see how I would transition a project like this, because the .NET Aspire documentation says, here's how to put it in, here's how to build a new application. And the next one is, here's how to put it in an existing application, download our example, which is already configured to be accepting of that, which, yeah. So my worry about Aspire is it's being positioned to be a tool to fix all the problems and have one way of doing things. And that's what I'm a little concerned about. Um, I get the consistency, but in the same, can I get um, yeah, yeah. I need to go check this out. This is where I wish I had more dev cycles. Yeah, yeah. There's so much technology to tinker with. So I'm waiting for Mojo to build the app and demonstrate to me how it works and why it's not all just coding in .NET Aspire stuff. The first thing that worried me, Mojo, to be honest, was actually, and I think it's the same as this essentially, but what you started was, oh, create the host application and then tell it about all these different projects and include them. I worry about Aspire that it's a Microsoft product. Yeah, they've got a track record of creating software, and since once they took on Xamarin, like with Miguel de Icaza came, and I don't know if it was directly because of Miguel de Icaza, but it was definitely in that same time period. Microsoft's entire approach to software evolved. They do seem to be more accepting of change and doing better things and allowing their development teams to be more creative. I mean, people like Fowler and such, Bart de Smet, as I mentioned before, and they've embraced um was it James Newton, uh uh, uh Newton Soft JSON guy, right? They've hired them and they've been listening to them and they've been introducing new things into their software. But then you get into the world where Google is, where they start a project and then scrap it. They've got a track record of spreading themselves too thin and half implementing things. Uh, I think I don't think it's necessarily spreading too thin. I think they've got the right support. I think that they don't always know how to position the things they're proposing to get people embracing the technology, and then they've only if you're running a business, right, you've only got a certain amount of time before you need something to make money, right? You need something to bring more people into the ecosystem. You need to see the numbers increase of usage, because usage means people are using your tools and are invested in the ecosystem and are building software built using your tools. And so I suppose there's a challenge of how do you position it? Like Aspire, we say .NET Aspire. What does a .NET Aspire actually mean? What does it mean to my project? It definitely seems like it works well out of the box, but what does it mean to my project? How does it change what does it change about my entire development path? Um, like if you can get people like me embracing it and pulling it in, right? Um, this is how I feel about Blazor. It's gotten way more complicated than it should have. And I think they're kind of bringing Blazor back around. They've figured out that people do like it. There's a lot of people that do love it. Several of them in this stream. I know that much. Um, and they've kind of started to tidy up the mess. But they did throw. There's a lot of confusion as to what is what and um, shifty eyes. If you want someone who loves Blazor, um, and he's an awesome streamer, great place to hang out. Fridays is community day, so we get to go and chat if we get the chance. About technology and stuff like that. So One Line will be streaming later on today, I hope. Oh, Friday Community Day is still on today. I should clear that before I say it. But yeah, it's also a great place to go and hang out, and also someone who knows Blazor a lot better than most people. Should be. I'd have read that way. I agree. Let's not trust MS all move to Go or Rust. Last night I was tinkering. Actually opened up Rust Rover, and I was trying to tinker with getting Kafka in Rust, and then it started throwing errors at me. I'm like, I don't have the time for this. I shut it down. But I was playing with Rust. Um, I'm not going to get this done. So what I'm aiming to do here, let's put the pieces in just so I've got so I have the main event. I'm going to publish this send user registration invitation, right? User registration invitation consumer. The problem with terminology, it is because it's a command to do that. This is the consumer of the command. I'm sending a command with an indicator, so I probably want to think about that naming. Ultimately, I see Aspire as a tool to speed up the config at the start of the project and ease the transition from local to cloud. So that's what I need to dig into if it can help me. Because right now I'll be looking at doing the Kubernetes configuration for all these services and doing that. When I get to these scale out, etc., it's going to be a challenge. So yeah, iConsumer send user registration invitation reference commands. Okay. So again, I'm going to follow a similar pattern, right? I'm going to create an application. Apparently, I'm not going to do that. Why am I not going to do that? Why do you have issues? So I'm going to create an application layer. I'm going to create a handler. I'm going to send a command into my system. Again, commands everywhere, which will then trigger the actual email. Now, I'm still tempted because, oh, that's why that's not available. I get, do I need a Scala drawer right now because that's dealt with elsewhere? I feel like it all, man. Speed up the 7 minutes of setting up config with a new tech seems OTT. Moving to cloud last few years has seemed pretty easy for new projects. Cloud is still something I need to get near. What I'm considering here, by the way, this email stuff is I'm actually considering pulling the Auth0 email template down, using that, and then I can configure my invitation email in there. It's either that or whatever email provider I end up using. I might start with Auth0 because I've got the management API in there. But never looked at Aspire. I'm probably missing stuff. Probably. My fear is I don't have a project that maybe I do. I don't have a project that I could kind of get my head around using Aspire with off the top of my head. I'm definitely not going to experiment with this. Go run as I'm at a family reunion. We'll catch you soon. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it, Mr. Weathers. Have a great weekend and a fun family reunion. So take care. Good to see you. What I thought of there is maybe I could resurrect. I don't want to make water drink water Aspire based. That would be hey Napalm, how you doing? I think that would be too risky. So that's not meant to be a hey, look at all this cool technology. It's meant to be, hey, here's a project that has some context. We can talk about how it might work. I mean, you can check it out and do it, but it's not really distributed in that nature. I could pick up a game project, not a video game, like my game library project. I could build out a version of that to play with Aspire. Again, I think having something that I have context of is probably it's probably safer. So in here, I'm going to do configure.add consumer, send user registration event consumer. So that will register that consumer. It'll know that that's the command. Sealed at the very least. I need to start being more aware of those things. So what this is going to do is it's going to invoke the command to actually send the invite. The challenge in this instance is I'm going to have to, in the long term, this consumers library is not only going to be a message bus receiver, a consumer, it's going to be a Kafka consumer. That's going to get messy. So, and I call them receivers there just to break them out. If there's a community project, then I can set it up. I don't know the term for it, but I've seen game devs do this thing where they add a piece of code to a code base, and then the next streamer adds a new piece, and so on. You want to kind of collaborate. Um, yeah. I mean, water drink water doesn't benefit from Aspire, right? Water drink water is a single website with an API. I mean, it could do. Um, Project built by committee. I think that I mean that's the challenge that you know any team faces, but disconnect. I don't think it's impossible though. If there was a clear handover, like if I built the project and demonstrated it on my stream is the pieces, and Mojo took the same pieces and was just focused on introducing it as an Aspire application stack, then and that was the demonstration. That probably will be okay. Probably would work okay. But anyway, I'm not going to worry about Kafka for right this second. There, I'm going to worry about moving on the email piece. What's going to happen next is the communications piece is going to have its own database, right? I copy this one. Copy this version of my database. So there's going to be its own database in here, and this will actually start to consume. This will actually start to consume events from Kafka as well, because I think it's going to start to store data. Probably users, tenant users, maybe tenants, maybe tenant information. Doesn't need planning items. It doesn't need Doesn't need any of that context. Projects, no. I'm not going to put. Yeah, I've got to decide what is notifications versus what is communications, right? So the communications should be the channel at which I send something that I've been told to send. Doesn't mean that this system needs everything in it, right? So yeah, I just got to decide what that looks like. That's why game devs tend to be more free with regard to this. They just treat it as a fun thing. One person starts coding something for some predetermined amount of time, pass it to the next person, and see where they come up, what they come up with, then to the next, and so on. No need for clean coding or clean handoff, just coding for the sake of fun. True. Open source tends to have one or two people that own it and decide, go and put it in a patch to Linux kernel, see how open and community driven it is. Yeah, that's yeah. Like the dream would be to have this super open community, right, where we can just contribute to things and everything moves forward. But the problem is that once a project gets to any sort of scale, opinions appear, and everyone has opinions, and they differ. Right? It's why I talk about the coding style, the layout, etc. These are things that I'm happy to change and happy to discuss because at some point, if someone comes onto this project with me, um, speaking of collecting projects, opinions on the statement of the yeah, it's funny. You can get a group of developers together and you can be talking about here's what we should do, 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 and no one really puts forward a solid opinion. The moment you try and do something, all the opinions come then. If you actually go and implement something to say we're going to do something, right, then the opinions appear. Right, it's needed on a large scale. I don't mind an authority top-down approach, otherwise you end up with chaos. The argument is you can always fork and do whatever you want. Right. Yeah. That is the benefit of open source. If you don't like it, you can go and make your own version of it. But anyway, unfortunately, right as we get into an entertaining conversation, um, is the first, second, third degree burns is it a big deal or not? Yeah. I do have to end up because I have to go and get some more coffee and eat something before I start work. So I will be in one line stream later on. I'm hopefully be able to participate in Community Day. And I'm going to continue working on this over the weekend. There may be a weekend stream. I don't know. I will see. But thank you guys for stopping in. We're going to go raid Andreas, who started another project by the looks of it. Trap, good morning, and thank you for hanging out. So take care all. Have a great weekend if I don't see you around. And yeah, I'll see you all soon. Take care. I need my stream deck set up.